Hello and welcome back to NextGen. We're here now for the session Mentoring and Coaching, How to Make It Impactful. Thanks so much for being with us today. My name is Susan Kirby-Smith, and I'm Senior Staff Writer at GovLoop and your moderator for this session. So let's get started. Regarding mentoring, it can make a wonderful impact on your career, but let's think about what that looks like in reality. How do you find the appropriate mentor or coach, and how can you make those interactions meaningful? Today, our expert will talk about the qualities to look for in a mentor and ways to deepen your relationships to get the professional guidance that you need. We have a few reminders to go over before we start. If you're on social media, we'd love to know what you're learning. Use the hashtag NextGenGov to share your takeaways. We also have some great additional resources for you to download from your console, and that includes this slide deck that you'll see. We hope you don't have any technical difficulties, but if you do, send us a message to the Q&A tab, and my colleague Blake will help you out. In that same Q&A portal, you can ask questions to our expert, so just drop them in whenever. We also have an open chat available for you today, so you can interact with other attendees down there. If you miss something, don't worry, we'll email you a link to the entire event tomorrow. Also, we're giving out 1 CPE credit for your participation in today's session. So there are 3 things you need to do to get that credit. Stay and participate for the whole session. Take the polls. The polls will be shown in the slides window. So you select your response and click submit to send in your answer. And then fill out the post-event CPE evaluation. And you can find that in the resource module on the console or at the resource center in the main environment. All CPEs will be emailed to you when we've confirmed that you met the requirements. All right, with that housekeeping out of the way, let me introduce you to our expert. Joining us is Demitrius Parker. He is the founder of the Trust Leadership Collective. He's got tons of insights and experiences to share with you. So Demitrius, you can begin.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Susan and Blake, for having me here. NextGen, thank you very much. I'm excited to share the information that we're going to talk about today, right? Which is maximizing impact, all right? Effective strategy for mentoring and coaching. So earlier, Susan and I were just chatting about just some of the experiences that we've had from mentors and coaches, and being on the other side of that. And so very excited to jump in to what we're going to be talking about today. So our objective is to kind of understand the role and benefits of mentorship in our career development, identify some key qualities to look for in a mentor or coach, probably more so definitely around the mentor side of things, learn some strategies to establish and deepen those mentor relationships, and then how to develop an action plan to engage. So that way that mentorship is more effective and you really get a lot more out of it. So our agenda, kind of what we just did, our introduction, we're going to talk about understanding mentorship, finding the right mentor, cultivating the relationship, making it impactful, and then of course, having some time hopefully for some Q&A so I can answer any questions that you all may have. So let's jump right in. Understanding mentorship. What does that look like? And so when you think about a mentor and a coach, I want to kind of, the way I build workshops is I do like them engaging. So just right away, let's get some engagement going. And in the chat, just share, what do you think when you hear mentor coach? What do you hear? What do you think is the difference in a mentor or a coach? Advice, right? Helping others help themselves. Guidance and advice. Yes. Coach has a goal, mentor has a role. I like it. Support, guidance, mentor long-term, coach short-term. guiding others, lessons learned, coaches advise that you come. Ooh, a lot of great stuff. Mentor provides guidance, whereas coaches guide you to the right answers for themselves, right? Mentors guides, coach does follow up, accountability with you, giving room to try new things. All right. A lot of great answers, a lot of great answers. Thank you so much and we love to see that you are engaged. And so, yes, we're going to talk about both of those, right? And so you gave a lot of great answers. And so for a mentor is typically someone who provides guidance, advice, and support, right? So those things that you all named, based on their own experiences and knowledge, typically in a specific field or career path. And sometimes it's just life in general. Mentors are often seen as role models, right? And so we see them more role models. They have experience, typically more experience than the other person that they're mentoring, but it's not always the case. Sometimes you may be in that same space, and the relationship is generally more informal, and can last for many years. So I think someone put in there long term. So yes, right, you can end up having a mentor for life. I have some mentors that I've had now for 20 plus years, and those relationships evolve, and the needs and the goals of the mentee as the mentee changes, right? So again, those key characteristics: long-term relationship, focuses on the overall career and personal development based on shared experiences and mutual respect, and often voluntary and unpaid. Versus our coach, right? A coach is typically a trained professional who works with us as an individual, kind of to develop a specific skill. And you're like, all right, what are we focusing on? What is it that we're trying to get better at? What does that look like? And so coaching relationships are usually more structured. They can have more time bound to them. And often, there's a set period. We're like, all right, we're going to be working with you for this amount of time. So again, yes, short term, goal oriented, a lot more laser focused, a more structured relationship, typically with regular sessions, and can be paid or non paid, depending on what that looks like. So, with what we shared, right, and I want to make sure you get your credits. I'm working here with you, I'm here for you. Let's go ahead and jump into our first quiz. And so, with that, what I want you to answer is, which of these answers below correctly defines mentor? A, tends to be more open-ended and informal, potentially lasting many years. B, covers broad career guidance, life advice, and personal development based on the mentor's own experiences. C, is usually a more personal and holistic relationship developing organically. D, is typically unpaid and based on mutual benefit. E, all the above. Give you about a minute or so. All right, we're coming down to the wire. Here we are. So looks like the majority of you got it correct, right? It is all the above. All those things are what defines a mentor. And so thank you very much for joining in. And so understanding just that mentor relationship and how important it is. And so we're going to talk about understanding the mentorship, right? So continuing that. So duration and structure. So here's the differences, right? So when we're talking about a mentor or coach, right? When we talk about the duration and structure, there's going to be a difference, right? Typically that mentor is going to be there a lot longer, typically. And a lot of times you can end up building a great friendship with a mentor. And that's not always, but a lot of times that does become those types of relationships where this is someone that you can talk about, and not just your career, but a lot of different things about life in itself. So that focus can be a bit different, right? You can get some life advice and personal development as well as career guidance versus that coach is going to be a lot more enhancing the specific skills. And that relationship, again, is usually more personal, holistic relationship with the mentor versus our coach. Typically, a lot of times it's more professional and sometimes contractual. And then the payment. Mentors typically are unpaid and is based on a mutual benefit. I know as a mentor, I get a huge benefit in being able to share my experiences and thoughts with my mentees, and also hearing from them and what that looks like. So it's a mutual benefit because I also learn a lot actually from my mentees, especially those that are in a different either gender or a different generation. Right? So it's a great mutual benefit. And then coaches often, involves more payment and things of that nature. So with our mentor, we're thinking about that, right? Accelerated learning, mentors and coaches provide knowledge and insight. So what they really do is that can drastically shorten the learning curve for mentees. So when we're in that space, the amount of information they can share with us a lot of times can help us and shorten that learning curve when we're getting into a space that typically we may not know a lot about or we want to know more about. And so them sharing their valuable experiences, their mistakes, right? So my grandma used to say, a wise man learns from his mistakes, but a wiser person learns from the mistakes of others. Okay? So if you think about that. And so when folks can share and say, hey, here's some mistakes that I made, we don't have to make those same mistakes. And so that's a great advantage that we get to have when we're working with our mentors and our coaches, right? Those lessons learned. And then that allows us to navigate our paths more efficiently and more effectively because we don't have to, again, have those same things, those same setbacks that were there before. Enhancing our networking opportunities. So mentors often help introduce us to their professional networks and folks that they know in circles that maybe we are not able to get into without those relationships. And networking through a mentor can provide access to opportunities and connections. And so I think about, for me personally, where there was opportunities where I've gotten to circles where I definitely would not have been able to, but because I knew someone or had a mentor that knew someone in those circles, they were able to get me in. And then, of course, it was up to me, but them providing that opportunity was fantastic. Increased visibility and recognition. Right? So coaching and mentorship can help individuals gain recognition in their fields. And so, again, knowing someone that's in that space, them introducing you to folks, advocating for you, saying, hey, here's this person that I'm working with. They bring this to the table. So they can kind of almost be a promoter for you in some ways, really helps to get you noticed, whether that's in your organization or external. And so then that's, again, works out very much for you. And then that personalized feedback. So now you're starting to get feedback that's directed towards you and how you are showing up in a particular space, right? So whether that's communication, whether that's networking, whether that's whatever it may be, they can actually give you that personalized feedback and guidance versus if you just went to a generic training that was open to any and everyone. So now you're able to look at it and go, okay, that's about me and what that looks like and how I need to, make some changes so that I can grow and be open. Support and encouragement, right? So someone who's there for you, support you and encourage you to say, hey, take that chance, do this thing, whatever that may look like. Actually set some challenges for you. They can see where maybe you're being complacent and not stepping out like you really could do. And they can be there and say, you know what, I know that you can do this. So I'm going to challenge you, right? Let's work together and build this challenge. Sounding boards for ideas. So before you go to a meeting, you can say, I want to bounce something off you. I want to share this idea with you. They can help you to formulate what those can look like and what to be prepared for if there are any setbacks or anything like that, right? So they can inspire you to have more confidence in the work that you're doing and what you're trying to do. And then career advancement. They can help you and guide you into making strategic career decisions. Things that maybe you didn't even know. So many times, I remember for me, there were things that I did not know existed in particular spaces until a mentor was like, well, have you thought about X? And then I was able to go, oh, I didn't know that was a thing. Even in the military, I was sharing with Susan that I do music. And in the military, in the Army, there is a space to actually have a career as a singer in the military, which I did not know and wish I had known before I joined, because I probably would have tried to go that route instead of being a combat communicator. I probably would have been like, hey, I'm going to be a singer and still serve in the military. So again, there's just so many different things where they can help you with your career. And then development of leadership skills. So through that coaching and mentoring, individuals can help you develop the essential leadership skills. And again, as I shared earlier, communication, strategic thinking, empathy, which is huge for leaders. And so they can let us know when, you know what, you seem to be a very take charge person. You seem to get in there, you're a go-getter, but here's a weak space, right? You don't have enough empathy when it comes to working with people. And so that's something maybe you need to work on. So whatever it may be, they can help you, again, to, think about those critical skills so that you can advance your career and take on more significant roles as you're growing. And then boosting job satisfaction. And what that's really speaking to is organizations that actually have mentorship programs. And so it has been shown throughout many studies that when employers have a mentorship program within their organizations, a lot of folks, the retention for folks to stay is typically higher because folks feel like I am being developed, they are investing in me. And so if you are an employer, you may really want to think about, trying to build a formal mentorship program. And when I say formal, it just means you actually have a structure, right? The relationships themselves can be somewhat informal, but, then you can say we do have a program, and that does tend to show a really good ROI. So with that, the way I like to work, are there any questions about what we shared so far as understanding that mentorship before we start talking about finding the right mentor? Do we have any questions around that before I jump into this next section? Pause for a few more seconds and then don't see anything. So I'm going to jump right in. Finding the right mentor. So what does that look like? So when we're looking for mentors, right, and we're thinking about the qualities of mentors, one of the things you want to think about is availability. And I would say this is on both sides, whether you are thinking about being the mentor or the mentee. what's the availability, right? Effective mentors should have time and willingness to meet regularly. And that regularly can be whatever it is that you both decide, but it has to be something that you both can agree upon so that it can be consistent and have that consistent interaction, which I feel is crucial for a relationship to be fruitful. Commitment to growth, right? A mentor is someone who's interested not only in their own growth, but also the growth in others. And so someone who's willing to share their ups, their downs, their mistakes, and their knowledge so that it can help you grow. Communication skills, so effective communication, because we all know that we tend to do better when we have clear, concise communication. And so that's crucial. And so your mentor should be able to communicate their ideas and feedback clearly so that we can grow, and also constructively. Experience and expertise. So what does that look like? Do they have experience in a particular area? Is that what we're looking for? Or just life experience in general? Someone who has lived what we can consider a full life, and that's going to be whatever it is that we as individuals feel that is. There's no specific thing what that needs to look like, but we do want them to have some experience and expertise and to help us grow, and so they can share those valuable insights and guidance. We talked earlier, empathy and understanding. So they should be able to relate to your experiences and the challenges that you face, and do that with some empathy and understanding of where you are in your career, where you are in life, where you are as an individual, so that they can, again, help you grow from that space. And then listening skills are very important. So are they there? Are they good listeners? Are they active listeners? Is something that we want to make sure that our mentors that they bring to the table. And then networking abilities. So a valuable mentor can open doors, introduce you to key contacts. And it doesn't mean that you have to be an extrovert. You can be an introvert, but your networking abilities, meaning I can introduce you to some folks, right? There's someone that I know that can help you in whatever it is that you're trying to do. So a lot of times that's something that you may want to look for. And I will tell you, not every mentor is great in that space, but typically majority of them do know someone, right? And so as we're talking about all these qualities, I can use the 80-20 rule, put that in play. So it doesn't mean that they have to have 100% of all these things. So you might want to think about the 80-20 rule, and does it fit into that, right? Are they hitting 80% of the things that you're looking for in a mentor? So positive attitude and enthusiasm. Are they excited to talk about, where you're trying to go and your field and all those things that are happening for you? Is there a passion that can be contagious, that can kind of fuel the fire for you to keep moving on and moving forward? Problem-solving skills. So they should be able to help you think critically and challenge you to find solutions, not necessarily giving you the answer. But, I like to use that old adage of, teaching you to fish versus giving you the fish. Respectful. A mentor should be, respect your views and decisions, and understand that, yes, although they are there to share things with you, you're not identical, and you should not always have to think exactly like them. We are individuals, and so it's important to respect who you are in your life experiences while offering guidance without being overbearing or dismissive of your experiences. Trustworthiness is huge. Can we trust them? Is there an integrity that's there? And then visionary thinking. So someone who can think about, oh, yeah, that's thinking outside the box and thinking about the future of, if you're thinking about it from a career perspective, how would you grow that? How would you move forward? So those are a lot of the qualities that I feel that are very important when you're looking for a mentor. And so with that, we're going to jump into our next quiz and going to see which of the answers below does not belong when you're thinking about a mentor. So when you're thinking about a mentor, which one of these qualities is not necessarily something that you have to think about? All right, you got about a minute to answer. All right, a few more seconds. All right. Counting down. All right. So I think the majority of you got it, right? So a good mentor must be funny is not one of those qualities, right? You do not have to be funny to be a mentor. I would say a sense of humor helps. It is good to have a sense of humor, but it's not something that you have to have. So great job on that. Answer that question, right? Being funny is not something you have to do as a mentor. So let's go right into finish talking about finding the right mentor, right? So professional networks and associations. So as we are thinking about where can we find a mentor, what does that look like? So now we know some qualities. Where can we find them? And so I would say professional networks and associations are a great place to start looking. Join some industry groups, attend some conferences and seminars. If you don't have someone that's already just personally, workplace initiatives. So we talked about that earlier. Company programs, some senior colleagues, so folks that you already work with that are senior to you, who maybe you admire, and you're like, you know what? You can go to them and ask if they would like to consider mentoring you. What would that look like? And then talking about that. And then we're going to talk a little bit more about how that would look later. Online professional networking sites. So there are some sites that you could definitely find mentors on. If you do not have a LinkedIn, I would say LinkedIn is a great place to find mentors. Sometimes they'll even find you just by the connection that you have. And so I do not get paid by LinkedIn, but I do promote them a lot. So as someone who has a recruiting background, it has been a great place for me to connect with people. And some of those people have become mentees for me. And I think, I don't think I have anyone that has become a mentor for me from LinkedIn, but I have several mentees that I have found from LinkedIn. And if you join later when we talk about the keynote of coffee, I will say that's where I have found someone from a networking standpoint that has helped my career from that standpoint. Mentoring platforms that are out there are actually quite a few. I'll just name some: Mentor Cruise, Score, Find a Mentor, and HiveBright are some actually platforms that are specifically made to find mentors. So you can go in and say, here's the space that I'm looking for, here's what this looks like. And you can kind of drill down and get connected with people who are open to mentors. So people who are already coming in with those qualities that we talked about earlier, and they will be in that space to help you and become a mentor and chat about that. So educational institutions. So I know, Susan, you worked at a college at one point, right, or university. And so in those universities, a lot of times alum networks, you can find mentors, career services. It's a good space to help you with mentors. Again, aligning you with some of those alums. Social media and forums in that space. So industry forums. If you have a specific career, you can go and look, and there's a lot. Again, LinkedIn has groups, Facebook has groups, so a lot of different social media spaces. You can go in and find groups that you can then possibly find a mentor that's from an industry leader or expert. Volunteering and nonprofit organizations. I love volunteering. I find a lot of space in there, and a lot of times when you volunteer, again, you will meet people that are leaders in those spaces, and a lot of times you can build those relationships and request or ask, hey, would you be interested in being a mentor? And a lot of those folks love to share their knowledge with you and to help you in your career growth. And then, of course, there's this cold outreach, which you can just reach out directly to someone in any of those spaces and just kind of reach out, or even just do a search, a Google search in a career space, and you say, you know what, I'm in this space, I'm looking for someone who could mentor me, and just reach out to them and say, here's who I am, here's what I'm looking for, are you interested? And believe it or not, there are some folks who will say, yes, I am. And let's get some time to talk and build a relationship from there. So as we're talking about that, let's talk about some of the tips for outreach. So when you're doing outreach, you want to be clear about your goals. So when approaching potential mentors, be clear about what is it that you are seeking from that mentorship. It's nothing worse than to reach out to someone and say, well, I don't know, you tell me, because you reached out to them. So if you're going to reach out to them, be clear about what it is that you are seeking. Offer value, right? So mention to them what you're also bringing to the table. Because like we said earlier, a lot of times these mentorships are mutually beneficial. And then respect time. Huge piece of that, right? Be flexible, understand that you're asking them. And so when you're coming to them, yes, you want to know how much time that you have available, how much time you would like to have with a mentor, but you also want to have some flexibility in that, because it is a two-way relationship. And that's another thing that I want to point out, is make sure that you understand that this is a relationship, right? So a mentor-mentee relationship, and relationship goes both ways. So when we have relationships, we need to be flexible. So those are some of the tips that I would share in that space as we start to think about that. So again, from a time perspective, I want to make sure that you are getting your CPEs in. So I'm going to jump to another quick quiz. And so which answers below works to find a mentor? Right? So you're looking to find a mentor. Which one of these answers best fits this question? So A, conferences and seminars. B, company programs. C, LinkedIn. D, volunteering. E, all of the above. Where are we? Are we all above? Volunteering, LinkedIn, company programs, conferences, and seminars. Where can we find our mentors?
I was just thinking about some of the great mentors I've had, and they don't seem to be just everywhere all the time. But it's sort of a type of magic where you're focused on learning specific things when you start, looking for a mentor.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that, Susan. It's interesting because I have also found when a lot of times you find mentors when you're not even seeking them,
Mm-hmm.
right? You're having a conversation with someone and you're just sharing your passion, and in that conversation of sharing your passion, someone offers to say, hey, you know what, you seem like someone that I would love to work with, or I would like to help. And so I think that's just another thing to think about when you think about mentorships, is just kind of sometimes sharing with people your passion and what is it you're trying to accomplish. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, for sure. It's you get, if you find somebody who has a similar perspective that you do on certain type of work, and then you realize you could share your perspectives and both grow. It's a really amazing thing.
Yeah. And even as you talk about that, I even think about not only those who share your perspective, but sometimes I found a couple of my mentors actually don't always share my perspective. So that's actually has helped a lot because they challenge me to think differently, right? Because they come in with a different perspective and I'm like, I never thought about it that way. And so it makes me think deeper.
Right.
All right, coming around to those final seconds. So ding, 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 94% got it correct. All of the above, right? So all the above is the answer of how we can find mentors. So whether it's volunteering, whether it's LinkedIn, company programs, conferences, and seminars, all those places can be a place that you could find a mentor. So the important piece, cultivating the relationship. How do we cultivate our relationships? And so initiating contact, when you're going to do that, as I talked about reaching out to someone, do your homework, research potential mentors, understand their backgrounds and expertise. Again, when you come to them, you want to have information of, even if they ask you, because they may ask you, why me? Why did you choose me? Right? So having that knowledge of, here's why I chose you. If you're reaching out to them via email or letter or whatever, personalize the outreach. So send a personalized message explaining who you are, why you admire their work. Again, why are you reaching out to them? Be clear and concise. Propose a low commitment to start with. So don't make it something that's crazy. Like, I want to meet with you every week, because that's probably just not feasible. And then again, show some flexibility. So that showing flexibility is going to be really important when you're reaching out to them, because they may not be able to meet whatever it is that you propose in the very beginning. Set expectations early, right? So as you're maintaining that contact, you want to set expectations to what is this going to look like, whether it's going to be monthly meetings, weekly meetings, emails, whatever it may be. How set the expectations is a huge piece, I think, in any relationship. Prepare for your meetings. So when you know you're going to meet, if there was any homework to do or anything like that, or even just knowing what are we going to talk about this week or this month, whatever it is, in this meeting, what is it going to be? Be prepared. Follow through. After meetings, express your appreciation for the guidance. And then also, again, if there's any work that is supposed to be done in between time, make sure that work is done and report back your progress, so that they can understand that there is an impact, and it's meaningful, again, both ways. Keep communication open. It's another huge piece of this, and respect boundaries. So be mindful of their time and their personal space. So avoid being overly demanding or contacting them excessively outside of the times and the expectation that you've already built, right? And again, doesn't mean that you can't reach out to them outside of those times, but make sure it's something that you've already talked about, so that it doesn't seem like you're starting to take up a lot more of the time than what you agreed upon. Provide feedback. Right? So offer constructive feedback even on the other side of things. Here's what is really working for me, or it's not working for me. I think it's also really important. Reciprocate whenever possible. I mean, offer some value back to your mentor, right? And that could be in the form of information or maybe even your connections. Maybe you have a pretty decent network or someone that they would want to meet or engage with, or even some insights that you may have. Remember, I said sometimes you may have a different perspective. So be open to sharing that as well, and not feeling just because your mentor has experienced that, you know, their way is the only way. Right? So I try to try to stay away from that, what I call the Mandalorian effect, where if anyone knows Star Wars, the Mandalorian, their motto is "This is the way," and so, there's multiple ways. So be willing to share your thoughts around that. Celebrate success together. So when there is success, how do we celebrate it? What does that look like? And even, creating some small milestones is important so that you can celebrate. Reevaluate your goals regularly. Are they still the same? Because sometimes they can change. So sharing with them, you know what, I know I was doing this, but now it looks like X, or whatever X may look like. So sharing those things, I think is important. And then handle transitions gracefully. So if the mentoring needs to end or needs to evolve, do it with grace. Don't do what's the term now we hear is ghosting, right? Don't just ghost and be like, I'm not interested in this, so I'm just gonna stop communicating. Right? Don't do that. That's not respectful. And again, you never know who these folks know, and what that can look like. And then again, it's just not a respectful thing to do. So let's try not to do that. All right, I have another quiz for you. I like quizzes. So which of the answers below does not belong? A, do your homework. B, personalize your outreach. C, use metaphors and analogies. D, be clear and concise. E, none of the above. So when we're thinking about working with our mentors, which one of these does not belong? Do your homework, personalize your outreach, use metaphors and analogies, be clear and concise, or E, none of the above. We have a minute.
Another thing that's interesting about a mentoring relationship is when you might disagree, but then you learn how a mentor does something and then move on from it. Sort of, maybe one technique takes you to another, but
yeah. No, I would agree with you, Susie. Like a lot of times when you are working with people, like I said earlier, right? Sometimes they share something and you end up building off of whatever was shared, right? You're like, oh, that was a great idea. And I'm going to build off of that.
Right. Or what I found is like, for a while, sometimes I would want to do something exactly the way my mentor did them, and then later I'd be like, well, we're going to change it, or do it differently.
Yeah.
Or maybe they did it differently and I'd be like, no, I'm going to still use your way.
I'm going to use the way that you used to do it.
Yeah. The way that you used to do it. Yeah.
Exactly. That, and for multiple different reasons, right? Sometimes we're like, that is more in our comfort zone, or sometimes it's just, you're like, no, I don't necessarily agree with this new way that you're going. Because, change is not something that we all love. And so sometimes we're like, I'm not ready to change that yet. So, all right. And so we're coming up on the last few seconds for this. All right, use metaphors and analogies. That's where we are. Right? Use metaphors and analogies. And it's not something that belongs in this space. It is okay if you use metaphors and analogies, but that is not something that you necessarily want to start off with, because that is not going to be clear and concise. All right, so as we talk about cultivating the relationship, practical steps to maximize the benefits from mentorship, right? So initial meeting preparation, discuss your objectives, establish expectations, and that can be communication, confidentiality, duration, all those things. Define roles and responsibilities. What are your roles and what are your responsibilities? What are the roles and responsibilities of the mentor? So again, that relationship going both ways. Set specific milestones. Okay? So what are some of the actionable steps? Review progress. How's that going to work? What is the feedback mechanism? Right. So the constructive feedback, the two-way feedback, and I would say definitely trying to make sure that there is space for two-way feedback. Flexibility in goals, so that adaptability, and then document your agreement. And I know we said that mentorships can be informal, but it's still one of those things that is good to kind of document it so that you both know, okay, this is what we said. And especially for some mentors, like I said, some mentors, such as myself, we have more than one mentee, and so those arrangements and agreements could look a little different. So things that you want to think about. So, as we talk about making it impactful. Again, practical steps to maximizing this: define clear objectives, prepare for your meetings, be proactive. Okay? Huge piece of this: utilize their network. So if they have a network, again, when folks connect with me on LinkedIn, I tell them my network is their network. On LinkedIn, I think I have like 14,000 connections. And so my mentees have access to 14,000 plus people as they're navigating their career and what that looks like for them. And so we can kind of work through that space. At the same time, respecting boundaries, embrace feedback. And so these ones that I have highlighted are the ones that I feel are really important in those areas. We talk about embracing feedback, act on the feedback. Act on that feedback. Don't just get it and then do nothing with it. Maintain professionalism, neutral learning. Again, it's both ways. Adapt and learn, share your insights, evaluate and adapt, and again, express gratitude. These folks are giving you their time and their energy. Make sure that you show appreciation. It's really important. Share your progress and success. So again, celebrate the achievements, offer reciprocal value. We talked about that. Acknowledge their effort, and expressing that gratitude, offering to assist, so helping them maybe with projects or anything like that, which also gives you more experience in that space. So if that opportunity is there, I would try to jump on that. Maintain consistent communication, invite them to events, things of that nature. Network expansion, again, be considerate of their time, adapt to changes, and then plan long-term engagement. Again, what is that going to look like? So with that, we are at our point where you get to ask me questions, and I'll do my best to answer them. But yeah, what questions do you have? What did you come into the space with when you started thinking about networking? Again, there's so much information that we could talk about. And so we only have 1 hour. And so with that, what do you have that I can answer?
I have one. Should somebody just ask a higher up to be their mentor?
Then say it again.
Should somebody just ask a higher up to be their mentor? Is that like the right way to go?
Yeah, I wouldn't say just ask. And it all depends on the relationship, right? So I would tell you I've had higher ups that I had the opportunity to have a conversation with. And in that, I then came back around and kind of taking some of the steps that I shared earlier, where in a more formal way, I let them know how much I admired them and what I saw in them and where I was trying to go with my career. And I asked them, is that something that they would be interested in? And it has worked to my benefit where they said yes. And I've also had it where they were like, I don't think I have the time. Like they were honest and they said, I don't think I have the time to be your mentor. However, and they introduced me to someone that was, right. And so, and I really appreciated the fact that they were honest in that space to let me know like, hey, I don't have that bandwidth, but based on, how you showed up, based on what you shared, I have someone that I would love to connect you with.
Sure. So, yeah, even if the person is not meant to be your mentor, you could have a conversation about mentoring.
Exactly.
With someone.
Right. And so, and I found those to be fruitful because, again, I think about that same leader and I still have a connection with that particular leader. And every now and again, they'll check in and ask how things are going, and or they'll see a post that I have on LinkedIn or somewhere else, and they'll say, "Hey, glad to see you're still moving forward," or something to that, like something positive that keeps me going. And so, so that's my thoughts on that. What about you?
Yeah.
What do you think?
I mean, I think that's wise that you could ask anybody, but everyone's not meant to be your mentor. But you could have a conversation with anybody to get to your mentor. But Angela Martinez has a question in here. She asks, how do you politely communicate to a previous mentor that the mentor-mentee relationship is no longer aligning with what you're trying to achieve?
Yeah. Oh, no. Oh, wow. Great questions. All right. And so, and that happens sometimes. And so, again, that's what I was saying, that's where we want to be respectful. And with that mentor, the next time you're checking in with them to say, again, thanking them for everything that they've done thus far and just being very honest with them at the same time being respectful, saying, I really appreciate this relationship and where it's gone so far, everything you've done. And I feel like, I'm ready to move on to do things. And I think I'm in a space where I don't know if this relationship is serving me in this capacity, right? It's not saying that you just want to cut off from the person necessarily, but the relationship in the capacity that is in as a mentor-mentee, maybe you're ready to move on from that, right? And so maybe even with that, you can either maybe take it slowly and say, I want to meet less. Or again, if you're in the mindset that you're totally like, this is not serving me for whatever reason it may be, then again, being honest and respectful with that communication. But I feel just like anything else, having the conversation and communicating that is probably the most important piece to think about. Because so many times we don't have the conversations that we should have. And with that, it's just going to sour the relationship. So have the conversation, have it respectfully, and then also making sure that you're thanking them for what they've done for you thus far.
Right. Yeah. Acknowledge the past and then, think about the future.
Exactly.
So, Angela has another question, and she would like to know, as a mentee, what kind of value can we bring to the mentor-mentee relationship?
Love it. Love it, Angela. Honestly, I would say it could be a lot. So sometimes, some of my mentees, just if the fact that when I share things, if they don't agree, they'll let me know that they don't agree and they'll let me know why, right? And so we can have conversations. And sometimes, again, I will learn different things because sometimes I'm coming from the perspective of either whatever made me successful or what I have found to work for me. And so there could be things like, so as a mentor, one of the things that I cannot do is think that I know everything. And so when I'm working with my mentees, a lot of times if they share something with me that, again, maybe I didn't know, or it's a way that I have not tried, it gives me an opportunity to step back and go, you know what? I'm going to think about that, or I'm going to take that back. So the value that I would say that you have is you're coming from a different perspective. As human beings, we're all different. And so when you share from your perspective, that's an opportunity for me to see things in a different light.
Sonia Mahoney asks, how would you differentiate a mentor from an advisor?
Good question. So right now we're talking about words, and so I would say an advisor at times, to me, almost sounds more like a coach, right? And so, and I think the difference, and I shared this earlier. I'm not sure when Sonia joined us. In the very beginning, I shared the difference between a mentor and a coach, right? So coaches typically, from a professional standpoint, are typically paid. And so a lot of times when I hear that term advisor, an advisor a lot of times to me could be your coach. And at the same time, a mentor could be an advisor, right? So not, I want to answer your question, and at the same time, it's one of those things where it depends on how you define that word advisor, right? So is that advisor, is this someone that you are paying? Because then that advisor is more of like a coach. If it's someone that you're not paying, then that advisor is probably more like a mentor, right? They advise you for particular things that you have found that they have expertise in or that you value. Did that answer your question, Sonia? Susan, any thoughts from you on that?
We have one more question. I think you can answer pretty quickly. Should it be your job to find a mentor in your own workplace?
Yes. Yes, and yes. Although it would be great for our employers to have mentors for us, it's not always feasible. And at the end of the day, it's our careers that we're thinking about, right? So it's our responsibility to find those mentors, because also we're going to have a better idea of what we're seeking in a mentor than anyone else would, right? They may have some suggestions for us, and that could be nice, but we cannot lean on our employers to meet that for us. Anytime I think about development, especially personal development or professional development, I have to take the majority of the onus on myself for me to grow, right? I can't wait for others to do that for me, because it may not happen. And then what does that do if I've been waiting for someone to do that for me? So I would say yes.
Sure, I agree. All right, well, that is all the time we have for this session. But thank you so much, Demitrius, for all of that information and all of the ways that you talked about mentorship in detail. I thought it was really valuable. We want to thank our 2024 NextGen Partner Alliance for helping us put on today's NextGen Summit. I have a few quick reminders before we log off. Don't forget to fill out your CPE evaluation to get your credit. And if you haven't already, head over to the exhibit hall to check out our booths. They have a lot of additional information and resources. Our closing keynotes are coming up at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. You can get there through the conference hall in the main environment. And we'll see you at the next session. Thank you for joining. Thank you so much, Demitrius. This was wonderful.
All right. Thank you.